What's going on, everyone? My name is Jonathan. I'm the host here at the Venue RX podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing wedding coordinator and planner, Michelle Garibay. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. My first podcast interview of the year, so I'm fired up.
You're listening to the Venue RX podcast, where we provide your weekly prescription of tips, tools, tactics, and inspiration to start or grow your wedding and events business. And now, without further ado, our host, Jonathan Aymin.
All right, Michelle. So I am really excited to get into your story. I've known you in the industry. You've got a wonderful reputation. You have a great team. I see you contributing all the time on your Facebook groups. And I think that's so needed right now, right? We've experienced such a crazy time in the last year. And it's really, really cool to see someone like yourself who, is hosting these groups on Facebook and providing a platform for creatives and just people in our industry to be able to bounce ideas off of each other. And that's totally what this show is about as well. So I would love to get into your story, just how you got started in the industry in general. And then I have a couple of specific venue related questions, because of course this is the Venue RX, although we do talk to many different vendors helping make their businesses better. But yeah, take us back. How did you get your start in this industry?
Yeah. So my name is Michelle Garibay. I am owner and principal planner of Michelle Garibay Events. This is actually my 15th year in business. I actually got my start in corporate events, corporate political events, fundraising, back in college in San Diego, and then got married. And my husband got transferred to Hawaii to finish out his career. He's a retired air traffic controller. So we went to Hawaii and what am I going to do now? So I made the transition from corporate events to weddings, started my business in Hawaii in 2006, and I never looked back. I am a very organized person, but I'm also highly creative. I'm a hybrid, and I guess I'm weird. I'm told I'm weird in that regard. So the corporate events were great because it really fed my organizational side. But then when I transitioned to weddings, I realized the piece that I was missing was the creative side and the visionary side. So like I said, once I started my business and really dipped my toe into the weddings and made that transition, I never looked back. And we moved back to California at the end of 2010. I had to literally start all over again since no one really knew who I was in California, even though I'd grown up here. So not only did I start my business from the ground up in Hawaii, I had to come back to California and do it all over again and build new relationships. But here based in Temecula, and so here we are.
You really have a lot of experience in starting your business over again, it sounds like, and that's what so many people are doing. What time period did this all happen? You said when you came back to San Diego or back to Temecula.
Oh, so we did plant roots in Temecula as soon as we left Hawaii. He retired, so we kind of had to come home. End of 2010, I want to say it took a good year.
Okay.
I really didn't start getting momentum probably until 2012. But the smartest thing I ever did, just like when I went to Hawaii, is join the local networking group. So that's networking groups are a big part of the growth and trajectory of my business, relationships. So that really kind of helped me solidify my path and where I wanted to be and who I wanted to work with. The venue relationships, which is kind of why we're here today, those are an important part of what I do as well as a planner. But yeah, I'd probably say, 2012, 2013. So it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. Mm-hmm. It takes patience and a lot of grit for sure.
Absolutely. And I want to get into the venue stuff because I'm fascinated here. I have some great questions. I feel like that we're really going to be able to dive in, but I want to know just in your opinion, and of course, none of us has a crystal ball, but you have built a business. You built a business in Hawaii. Then you ended up coming back here and building a business. At the time, was it easier to build the business in Hawaii than it was to build here? Because at the time, 2010, we're kind of at the bottom of that little financial dip that we had. And so entering that sort of economic environment, did you find it increasingly challenging to start your business?
I'm not sure if that was really a factor because, like I said, I started it in 2006 when I was over there. And then, of course, 2008 or 9, the recession hit. But those who were getting married still had that money set aside to get married. And I was working mostly with destination couples. So although weddings didn't really take a huge dip, how couples spend their money changes with the economy, and that's true for whatever economy we might be in. I was like, are you crazy? But yeah, I started it when that dip and then came back again. But yeah, I don't think it affected it as much. But adaptability in what we do is crucial. So being mindful of the economic situation and how couples are choosing to spend their money and not being tone deaf to those things really helps with longevity.
That's huge. And I'm so glad there's two things I want to touch on. That's huge. The adaptability part, understanding that how couples still may get married. Couples are still getting married, but how they're going to spend their money is different. What they're going to value is going to be different. They are really going to, hyper focus on the things that are really important to them, and some of the things that aren't as important, that might've been a luxury that they may have had money for previously, not being tone deaf to that, I think that's a powerful bit of advice to vendors in this industry. The other thing that I really like that you said was just about, your transition from corporate America into the more creative side of the industry with weddings. And it's cool to hear when you're able to transition, some of your strengths that you had in one industry to the next. On the podcast that we had with Bethel, Nathan, she shared, that was such a good episode too. I just went back and rewatched it, and it was really good. She was just really, really incredible. But, she shared how she was in Japan and she was working in finance and on Wall Street. And so she has all of this corporate experience that then she's bringing to the table and just how she runs her business. And I think that's so cool. If anyone's out there listening to this who hasn't started their wedding business, and you do something completely unrelated, don't feel like that's a disadvantage. Do you feel like it was an advantage coming from corporate America, into what you do now? Has that given you a leg up at all?
Absolutely. Just because our industry, I hate to say it, there's such a low barrier to entry. People from the outside in think what I do is a lot of pretty things and fluff, but that's not really all what it takes to be a wedding planner. There's a lot of, that corporate, budget and paperwork and communication and logistics. The design and the pretty things are just a very small part of what I do. So having that business background, and I used to be in public relations, I used to be in politics, all of those skill sets I learned, fast-paced environments, has served me really well when I got into the wedding business. Just that creative aspect, the piece that I was missing really helped in that regard. Just because, the guest experience and creating that environment is super important. But yeah, having those two skill sets and those two pieces to kind of meld together into what I do for my couples is important.
Awesome. I love that. You mentioned networking, and you mentioned that was kind of one of the things that really was a catalyst for your success. Can you give some tips for maybe new or experienced vendors in the industry who have difficulty networking, maybe just where to start, or once you find a couple of different groups, how to contribute better?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of us, as you know, most of us creatives are a little more introverted, me included. If I'm in my inner circle, great, I'm kind of the life of the party, but I'm not out there all the time. So, and most of us, photographers, most of what we do, we work by ourselves. We work at our desks. We're not in big offices with big groups of people. So creatives, as kind of a rule of thumb, are solopreneurs, and we aren't very outgoing people. We focus on our craft and we serve our couples. So I know networking is daunting to some people, to a lot of us, and me included. Sometimes I'll just be okay just kind of standing in the corner and just watching the room, but that's not serving you or your business. Spending money, spending time. So you kind of really have to push yourself to get outside that comfort zone if you really are serious about growing your business. So one tip that's really great if you are an introverted and networking events just give you all kinds of stress, find a buddy to go with, one person to kind of like be your wingman, wing person, wing girl, whatever the case may be, to go with, and then try and introduce yourself to a few new people, but then you can kind of come back to home base, take a breather. So there's just tips and tricks. But I can say if you really want to be successful in this business, you can't not network. You just can't. You can't avoid it. You need to be out there. You need people to know who you are, to what you offer. Otherwise, you might run the risk of becoming irrelevant. Or it's that whole adage, out of sight, out of mind. And that's absolutely true. So that balance of being out there, but also, still not driving yourself nuts by having to be all the things all the time. Just find that happy medium and just do what works best for you. But it is an important part of what we do, because our business, our wedding business, the industry, the hospitality industry, it is a people industry. So we really have to get out of that mindset and step out of that comfort zone if we want longevity. I
love that you said that. And, I consider myself introverted, actually, with extremely extroverted tendencies. I definitely am very outgoing. I love people, but I definitely need that recharge time, that me time that's away from the crowd, the bustle, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny, in a networking environment, I'd love to think of myself as a social butterfly, but that's totally not true. Yeah. And I've been at those networking meetings before where you go to the bar or whatever, you grab that drink, you hold on for
decompress. Yeah.
And you walk around with the drink and you kind of say hi to a couple of people, but you're totally right. That buddy system really does work. I absolutely love that. That tip is gold. As far as discovering groups that are really, really, vibrant and full of opportunities, networking opportunities, and just opportunities even for the vendor themselves to add value. Do you have any tips on where to find some of those spaces?
Well, Facebook, a lot of the groups that are out there have Facebook pages that are searchable. I know a lot of the bigger, more nationwide groups are just a Google away. We've got WIPA, which I'm a part of. I'm the director of education for our Southern California chapter this year again, there, which I love. There's ABC, Association of Bridal Consultants. There's also Tuesdays Together from the Rising Tide Society. So, and plenty more that I'm sure I'm not naming, but each of them have a purpose and are geared towards certain types of event professionals. So depending on where you want to be, your comfort level, if you're new, if you're more seasoned. So just kind of kick the tires and try them out and see what's the best fit for you for how you want to grow your business. Not every group is a one size fits all. So it's really important that you kind of vet and see what the best fit for you is.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to transition and talk about venues now, because, that's what we're all about here. Certainly. I think that the venue space is very interesting because, there's limited inventory. There's only a certain amount of good dates. And of course, we're lucky here in Southern California to have probably more good dates than other parts of the country. If you're in Vermont or Montana or somewhere, the wedding season might be a little bit shorter just because of the seasons. I know Palm Springs is like that right here in our backyard. When you think about your relationship as a wedding planner, and you would say wedding planner rather than wedding coordinator, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a planner because I do plan weddings, and just my level experience speaks to that. And there are differences. Coordination is really more focused on the execution of the day. Planning is more of the logistical start to finish. So words do matter. And there is a difference between planner and coordinator, and even planner, designer, and coordinator, but that's a topic for another day.
Well, and I totally love that you said that. As the director of education for WIPA here in Southern California, I think it's only appropriate that you did educate everyone. And I think there is a lot of maybe misunderstanding. I know I certainly didn't know that there was that distinction. So thank you for that. when you think about a venue, what things can venues do to make your life easier? And as a tag on to that, if you want to add, what things are just pet peeves for you that you've seen venues commonly do? You don't have to name names, but just let's have a good conversation about this, because I think, and I'm hoping many venues will listen to this. We can post this in different discussion groups and things, and like it would be cool to kind of discuss how venues can actually work with the planners that work on their properties in a much more synergistic way.
There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, and there's so many things we could talk about. So let me see if I can start with my biggest. I think, and just because, I'm here in Temecula and I know a lot of the venues and I have relationships and I do consult with venues, just because the couples I work with, a lot of high customization is there. So if a venue reaches out to me and say, hey, I need your advice on this, or because a lot of times what happens is we all get back what we put out into the world in social media, in our marketing. So if the photos that the venues are posting are not of their ideal event that they want to continue to book, if it doesn't represent your property well, but those photos are out there, couples see them and then they come back because that's what they want. So it's really a vicious circle. So venues really need to be mindful of their marketing. It absolutely matters. Who the models are, what you're showing. Is it trend forward? Is it dated and 10 years ago? Because again, what you put out into the world is what you're going to attract. And the venues that, all we're getting are low budget couples, or all of our weddings look the same, look to your marketing. I can tell you that that's the biggest piece that everyone's kind of missing. And ask fellow wedding professionals what they think. Because a lot of times we get tunnel vision and we think, oh, looks good, this is awesome, we're doing a good job. But if you get feedback from those looking in and other wedding professionals that either want to work there or do work there, they'll give you honest feedback on what they think you can improve on, if you're really serious about leveling up.
Totally.
And that's what I find when I talk with the venues, that they want to level up and they don't want the same looking wedding all the time, or the same color palette, or, the same, don't get me wrong, I love a blush gold wedding, but if those are the only photos that you're posting, that's all you're going to attract. Like attracts like. So, so there's one point.
I love that you said that. Bethel said something similar but different in a way. She was talking, I think, to more vendors as a whole, but I really think that is important. And I don't think that as vendors, we think that it matters as much as it does, maybe. We all know we should be posting on Instagram, on Facebook, like putting content out, but the type of content will totally make the difference. And I love that you said that. I need that advice, I know, in my own business, with staffing and just with what we do. So
it's not just social media either, websites. I don't know where this rumor got around that couples and wedding professionals don't look at websites. They absolutely do. As a planner, I absolutely do. Because a lot of times I'm sending my websites to my couples, or if I'm looking at it. So it needs to be up to date, with up-to-date photos, up-to-date copy, the branding, the colors, all of those things really need to check off those boxes if it's going to communicate what you want it to communicate to the couples you want to attract. So again, another topic for another day, but the websites absolutely matter. And it needs to have the correct information and up-to-date information. And I can't tell you how many times I go to websites and the photos are so outdated. Mm-hmm. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what other things can venues do when because I guess, are you saying the struggle, and just so I'm understanding you correctly, the struggle is when you're a planner and you're coming with a couple to a venue, they've kind of cast an image of a certain type of, that blush and gold wedding. And then you show up on site and that's not the case. They're really looking for something a little bit different and there's some friction. Is that what you're saying? Or how? No,
not necessarily that, but if a venue doesn't keep their photos and their venue fresh and up to date, then yeah, it's going to attract a certain couple that is still looking for that. Or
And so
I
this is
know
even,
I kind of had to put it in words, but I recommend my venues to my couples based on what they are looking for. If I know a venue is not going to fit that, I'm not going to recommend it. So venues can potentially close themselves off to a lot of couples if they pigeonhole themselves into a certain look or a certain color palette, or if they're not updating their venue and refreshing. So you mentioned seasonality. Yeah, pretty much in California, we get married, have couples that get married year round, but you need to set time aside to, resaw the lawn, upgrade, paint, and really refresh the look of the venue so you can continue to stay relevant as trends change and needs change. So, and especially if you're looking to charge a higher price point, if the venue itself is looking a little beat up and a little worn, that you're not going to be able to close the sale. So people notice that kind of stuff. As a planner, I notice that. If your venue's busted and a little run down because you have weddings Friday, Saturday, and Sunday the entire year, it's that wear and tear is going to show. And the price you charge needs to be relative to that. You can't charge $10,000 if your grass is dead. They're going to walk. So those types of things need to be considered for sure.
I think it's funny you said busted. We could totally have a segment of the show like busted or not. We take a look at a venue, busted.
All right, that was a little crude, but it's true.
Oh, I love it. It's awesome.
And another thing, I know sometimes venues, the bottom line needs to be met, which I get. It's a business. They need to ensure their profitability. What happens is if leads or things start drying up, again, look at your marketing. We want to make sure that venues are avoiding the race to the bottom, either slashing prices or we're going to do an all-inclusive package because we think that's what couples want, just to kind of make things easy or seemingly easy on a venue, when in fact that may not necessarily be the case. If you're looking to make changes, talk to the planners in your area. They might be able to give you more feedback that's a little more realistic and eye-opening and it may not fit what you're thinking. Be open to working with planners. That's probably one of the biggest things I can tell venues. Don't pigeonhole and lock yourselves in to a set package unless you want all your weddings to look like the package. If leveling up is not important to you, by all means, do your thing. But if you're really looking to increase sales, increase leads, increase your bottom line, and continue to level up, partner with planners and encourage them to work at your property and allow them to customize and bring vendors in that are going to fit the design aesthetic, what the couples are looking for guest experience, as long as it's within reason. But when you limit and don't allow that creativity and that customization to come in, it can affect how the weddings that are attracted there and the weddings that are booked there.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I have a question though that kind of piggybacks off of what you just said. When you see things like, these mini monies, micro weddings, these different really creative things that I think our industry has done to adapt, does that concern you at all with kind of where the price point is at? Because I've seen venues that are offering complete all-inclusive packages, for $1,250, $1,000, like just really, really cheap. And it does seem like there is this notion of, what we talked about not being tone deaf, that immediately goes hand in hand with, okay, let's get this as cheap as possible. The venue will do everything. Let's try to cut out other vendors to make this cheaper on our couple. Give me some of your feedback on that. Like, how does a venue retain their relevancy and not be tone deaf, but also not just grind prices down to a place that our industry has no margin?
Sure. Well, I think micro weddings, intimate weddings, I know that's the new buzzword. for part of last year into this year. I love them. And I view them as somewhat of a temporary solution to this pandemic problem that we've had in our industry. I support them only because if we keep postponing and postponing, that is going to continue to snowball for our industry and create a much bigger problem in 2022 into 2023. I encourage micro weddings, and if venues want to offer them, I think that's very smart of them to do so, because that's a cash flow. And it's a win-win for both. Couples can get married, venues can still earn some money. I'm not necessarily saying race to the bottom. Micro weddings do not equate to being cheap. They are just smaller. So the cost per guest can still be the same, if not more. So yeah, it doesn't equate to being a low budget situation. There are a lot of opportunities with intimate weddings to where on a smaller scale, there's a lot more detail. The guest experience is really enhanced. You might have a wine paired dinner. There may not be dancing involved, but it's a much longer dinner, situation. So there are a lot of opportunities with micro weddings, but I'm seeing that becoming a problem to where, micro weddings, smaller guest lists, much cheaper on the budget scale. That's not necessarily the case, but it is offering a solution. So I do think it's smart. Maybe you don't offer your prime Saturdays. Micro weddings are typically during the week. So on the venue side, you can offer a much less expensive venue fee for that access, but it's a Monday through Thursday situation. So, again, availability is going to be a problem too. I don't think it would be smart for venues to give away Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for a micro wedding at a low price point when you can offer, your 100-person minimum wedding. So they need to be smart about it, but it's not an automatic assumption that intimate weddings are at a much lower price point per guest overall, because the details, the flowers, just the touches that kind of go into it, are all relative to that.
I love that you made that distinction. I think that was really, really cool. And I think that not equating small with cheap is definitely something that we have to keep in mind, because you're right. Just because it's smaller, there are still details. In fact, if anything, the details matter more than ever, right?
Yes. Because it's a much smaller group. And when you've got 10 people sitting at a dining room table or, for dinner, give them a really amazing experience. But then if you have 10 people on a dance floor, that might be a little awkward. So yeah, the event itself shifts and prioritizes certain things a little bit differently. But yeah, you have an opportunity to take that budget that you were spending on a larger wedding and reimagine it to a really cool experience for that smaller guest list, and just really have a really special celebration.
Totally. Well, I want to move to the segment of our show called The Wedding Wheel. And then I have one more question about venues, but I'm really excited about this segment here and to kind of see what's going on. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, whether you are on podcast or checking this out on YouTube, we are on all the different platforms. We have the segment called The Wedding Wheel. We have these fun questions here. We're going to go ahead and spin it. Michelle is going to think of her answer. We are going to have a couple other segments of our show, and then we will come back and get her answer. So there's all sorts of fun, different things on here. Let's go ahead and give this a nice spin. All right.
Big money. Oh, no, wrong game show.
No, it is big money, right? If I gave you $10 million right now, what is the first and let's add second and third thing possibly that you would spend that money on? So that's the question. We're going to come back to it in just a little bit. So you have some time to think about it. First, second, third, 10 million bucks. It's a lot of money. What are you doing with that? But before we get to that, and before we get to the daily prescription, the left at the altar segment, I wanted to ask, do you have a preference working with a blank canvas venue versus working with a venue that's a little bit more all-inclusive? Maybe they don't offer planning, but they do have all of their rentals. They have in-house, 2 or 3 DJs that they work with. Catering's already defined, something that's a little bit more rigid, maybe even like a banquet hall or hotel or things like that.
I am all for the blank slate venues because that allows way more customization and a wider range of what the wedding could look like, more possibilities. I am really not a fan of all inclusive, comes with this, comes with that. 'Cause again, the couples I work with don't want to be pigeonholed like that. They want choice. They want it personalized to what they're looking for. So when you're working with a reputable planner, I work with reputable vendors. I'm not going to bring in a shoddy DJ, or sorry, DJs, hate to put you on the spot, but I'm not going to bring in other fellow professionals that aren't going to do a good job because my reputation's on the line. So I think what the venue situation is that they feel that they need to restrict to a certain list of vendors because they don't know any better and they haven't had other experience working with a planner who knows what they're doing, to where if they bring in good people. On the other side of that, though, I think venues do need to be very selective with the planners that they work with, vet them, absolutely. Make sure they know what they're doing, they're insured, and they have the experience to do what it takes to transform that venue and to really do a good job in serving the couples and taking care of the venue and not, disrespecting the policies or things like that. So leave the venue better than you found it, kind of thing. So that's important too, just to make sure venues really vet who they're allowing on property, but then to let the planners do their jobs and to really do what the client's paying them to do and really help elevate the venue and bringing in all the cool things.
I know that you probably see both sides of that, where there are venue owners who may really want to have kind of a heavy-handed presence, and you're like, I got this, I'm a professional. And, on the other side of that, there may be several beautiful venues that just aren't working with good vendors. Speak to those venues that might be looking at their vendor list going, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I'm hearing from the couple that there was poor response time. I'm hearing that the DJ that the planner recommended is a terrible DJ. We're really bagging on DJs here right now. But the florist.
We love our DJs.
We do. We love our DJs. But florists or whoever it is, when you have a venue that is looking at their list going, what the heck? I need to make some changes. I've got to, bring encourage some fresh vendors here on the list. Is there, where would you start?
Well, no, I do think venues need to be very involved. If they are putting a preferred vendor list together, they need to be very involved with it, and they cannot set it and forget it. They need to revisit that list every year. They need to ask themselves, who on this list are couples booking them? Are they doing a good job? Are they getting good reviews? And maybe have not only take that information, but also have conversations with couples when you're asking for reviews if something happened or you want to get more information. But you can't just set a list and just let it go for 5-6 years without updating it. I've seen vendor lists where there are vendors, wedding professionals that aren't even in business anymore. So that doesn't look very good on the venue.
No.
So every year, audit your vendor list, remove people. I hate to say it, but if a couple is not booking someone on your list and they haven't worked at the property all year, they're obviously, that vendor is not resonating with what your couples need who book your property. That's an important thing to know. And it's nothing to do with the vendor, but if you're attracting a certain type of couple and a certain style and they're not booking those vendors, you need to put on the big boy pants and remove them from the list if they are not serving your couples. So that's very important to make sure you're constantly auditing and ensuring that the best people that serve your couple's needs are on the list, not what someone tells you or, oh, this is the best person, you need to put them on, but it all needs to mesh together.
Got it. And it sounds like that could be two different things. That could be you're doing improper branding. You want to be able to attract maybe a higher budget type of wedding that's going to resonate with a vendor that you might have on the list, right? That does $100 a plate, catering, but the type of presentation you have is not attracting that type of couple, or vice versa. You're doing a great job with your branding. You're at the price point you want to be, but you have someone on that's either way too low or way too high. So that's really, really, really insightful. Let's move to the segment of our show called left at the altar. And, that's a dramatic time, certainly in anyone's life, if they're ever in that position. This is a tipping point for you. This is a mistake, possibly a failure, something that you remember, as a learning experience in your professional career. Could you share something like that? And then of course we have the daily prescription. You can add something else, or you can, follow up with your reflections and how maybe you would avoid that in hindsight.
The only thing I can think of, I've been in business for 15 years, so it's kind of hard for me to piece apart, but I do remember a wedding. It was a long time ago. It was early on in my career. This is when chocolate brown and Tiffany blue were a popular wedding color combination. Okay. And I remember the reception, she wanted chocolate brown linen. So of course we had it rented. And I went into the reception space, and it was at a hotel. So they had the room already set. I walked in and it was the wrong color. Not necessarily they brought the wrong color, but the chocolate brown had a little more red in it. It looked like a Hershey bar, not like an espresso. So the room was already set, linen, plate, like completely event ready. I walked in at my arrival time, I go, oh my gosh, this is not the right color. The bride's going to flip out. I have to do something about this.
Oh no.
So I didn't have a lot of time. I want to say maybe 2 hours, but I called my other linen vendor who I had a really excellent relationship with. And by the way, this was a Hawaii wedding when I still lived over there. So this is a long time ago. Called her and explained the situation. And she was nice enough to say, I have what you need. I'm headed down to Waikiki. I'll drop it off for you. And we worked it out. To where I paid for the dry cleaning out of pocket, because as a planner, the buck stops with me. So that was one of those things I made the decision to do, because that was my job to make sure the client got what they wanted and what they expected. So we were able to get the room turned and reset all the linen with the floor length espresso linen that the bride had envisioned. She didn't know anything. I sure as heck don't tell my couples if something goes wrong. I am paid to fix it and move on. I did tell them after the fact, after the wedding day. I don't remember how it came about, but they did know after the wedding day that I had done that. But that's basically how I fixed it. So it was all hands on deck. We reset the room, and the couple was none the wiser. So
that's huge. That's totally speaks to your professionalism. And I think some of the value, there's so much value in hiring a planner and a coordinator, a designer, any of these different positions, but certainly having someone there who's taking a comprehensive look at what's going on and taking responsibility to that level. That's huge, Michelle. So that definitely speaks to kind of your professionalism and why, you're still in this industry and in business after 15 years. So I love that.
Yes. Needless to say, that never happened again. And it was one of those things to where I had to sample the linen. I really don't know how it went wrong. I just knew it wasn't right, so I fixed it.
I like it. All right. Well, we are back to our wedding wheel, and this is the answer. What are you doing with your $10 million that I just gave you? You just won the lottery. Ding, 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 right? Pretty big money. What would you do?
A few things. I am an animal advocate, so I would donate a considerable amount to animal charities. I know one of my former brides, Pamela Noble. Sorry, I'm going to plug her, but because what she does is amazing. She has a completely 100% nonprofit, Noble Critters, to where any proceeds, 100% of the proceeds get distributed to various animal charities around the country. And I know we have a few here in California and Temecula, others as well. So I'm a huge animal advocate. So I know a good chunk would go to help animals.
Totally.
Travel. I love to travel. I really love to travel. That's why I got into destination weddings. Oh, a bucket list trip. I really want to have this sounds so extra, but my husband and I wanted to get a private boat, like a private charter boat, and go to different points in the Mediterranean, like Italy and Greece. He's been to Greece. We've both been to Italy. and just experience that for like a month. So travel,
I love that. That's
anywhere with water.
Okay.
I'm a sun and water girl. I'm not a snow person at all. That's just not my jam. I think I finally realized that. I just, no. Anywhere where there's sun and ocean, I'm there. Culture, food, anything regarding food, wine. I'd probably build a ranch. We're horse owners. My daughter rides in Temecula, so I'd maybe build a ranch with horse equestrian facilities, and I don't know. Where else can I donate money with good causes? I don't know. That's a lot. That's a lot to think about.
It is. It definitely. Well,
Ugh.
those are really cool answers. I think you definitely.
I'd probably set up retirement or for my kids, probably some type of funds for our 2 kids.
Very cool. Very cool. You definitely are living in the right places. From Hawaii, definitely plenty of sand, sun, maybe a few mountains here or there, depending on where. And then, of course, in Temecula, wine, sun, close enough to the beach. So that's very cool. All right. Well, I did want to ask, I want to start asking our guests this question, and you can totally pass if you want to pass, but what is the most, just like maybe rambunctious, inappropriate, just crazy experience that you've seen at a wedding? Something, because you've been through so many weddings, and I know we all have different experiences. People not showing up, actually getting left at the altar. I mean, just, does anything jump to mind that was just like a, oh my God moment?
There was one. I have to say, I don't get a lot of them. I vet my couples pretty thoroughly. I don't get the bridezillas. I really don't. However, there was one wedding a few years ago. It was in Temecula, and it was, I need to tread lightly here. It was just everything that could go wrong from the couple by their own actions went wrong. The groom, when he was supposed to be getting ready for photos, was at the casino gambling.
No.
The ceremony, I think, was an hour and a half late because of that. I think the bride had to have her makeup redone 2 and 3 times because she kept smoking weed. Oh, yeah, it was just really kind of random. And then she needed a nap. And then when we finally got them down the aisle, they were already legally married, mind you. And when they finally got down the aisle, they had already been mic'd up by the videographer. The bride was upset about something the mother-in-law said, wouldn't walk down the aisle, had to get the groom into the location where the bride was so they could hash it out. But because they were mic'd, the videographer heard the entire conversation.
Oh, no.
About, I'm not walking down the aisle, blah, 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 blah. But then my coordinator was, okay, you're already legally married. Like, the ship has sailed. Walk down the aisle. And then they just smashed cake in each other's faces. And a couple of the rentals got ruined. I don't want to say anymore, but I have to say it was just, that was probably one of the weirdest, oddest weddings. And the only reason I had them as a client, everything was going well. I think they came into a lot of money from an inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was just like, hey, they want this big dream wedding. Money was no object. They hired me, and it just ended up snowballing into this complete shit show. And I ended up being a therapist more than a planner. And yeah, so I hope I didn't cross the line by telling that story, but
no.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
No, we're this definitely, I would like to include more of these types of things, because I think we all have either horror stories or just different dramatic or crazy things that happen.
That's the only wedding in my 15 years that has been remotely crazy like that. So I'm thankful.
We have guests that like to act up sometimes, at venues. That's something.
Yeah.
That's something that can happen as well. So anyway, well, Michelle, thank you so much. I mean, you provided so
alcohol does a lot of weird things.
Wait, say again.
I said alcohol can, you know, when you're the sober one on site watching things happen, uh, and then I've had a couple drunk guests get in my face a couple times and I'm like, yeah, I'm the sober one, so you might want to step back. But for the most part, my all their guests are fun and respectful. But yeah, every once in a while you get that random person that, yeah, I don't put up with that.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that. Well, thank you. You added so much value. I'm really excited about releasing this and cutting it up with our team here. You've dropped gold in so many different topics. So where can people connect with you? You know, if they're looking for you to either plan their wedding, or maybe they want to add you on as a planner to their venue. They want to work with you as a vendor. They want to ask you tips, or maybe hire you or get involved in your groups. Where can people find you?
I am on Instagram at Michelle Garibay Events. My website, michellegaribayevents.com. We also have a sister brand, Everly by MGE, with Kara and Alex running the helm, at the helm over there. And they handle a lot of our wedding management and our package weddings. I work mainly in full planning and design. So we do have that little branch off, which has been a lot of fun for them. I'm also on Clubhouse, my latest obsession. I love Clubhouse. I love the casual audio only nature of it, to pop in and pop out, and just getting access to the level of professionals that are on it has just been, it's a little bit of a time suck. So I'm trying to scale back, but I'm obsessed with that. So it's a really good audio only social media app, I guess. But
I'm with you.
I'm on Clubhouse too, so everyone can connect with me there.
I am totally with you there. And I know it's a little bit harder for people to connect with other people they want to connect on Clubhouse, because many people still don't know about it. And then when you get in, the interface is still a little
because it's still in beta, I think.
Yeah. No, I love it. I've been obsessed with it as well. I've seen you in a couple of rooms. I popped in and out. I know we have a couple vendor friends in common. Jenna Joseph, I think, has been on there. I've seen... I was in a room with Kristen Binford. She's a venue consultant, I think, out of Missouri. I want to say. Hopefully, we'll get to have her on the show. But yeah, Clubhouse is wonderful.
It has really opened the doors, especially for those wedding professionals that hate in-person networking. This is for you, because you have access to anybody around the world. Pick their brain, have a conversation with them. You can pop in, pop out, but just the access to the amount of people and wedding and event professionals. And it's not even just wedding specific. There are other industries on Clubhouse as well. So you can kind of diversify your education. But I have to say, it's definitely been a shot in the arm for our industry to be able to reconnect and learn and absorb and contribute and all of that. So yeah, we've got a lot of our Temecula friends on it already, and I'm keep trying to increase that presence. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show today. If you're listening on YouTube, definitely you can go follow us on our podcast platform. Generally, our podcasts drop a little bit quicker than the YouTube content just because our team has to cut everything up. But all that content will be dropping here soon. Subscribe to our channel. I always forget to say that, but it really does help to grow this channel. And we want to continue providing everyone value with incredible guests just like you, Michelle. So thank you so much. And we'll see you all in the next episode.